Well, joining us now on the line from Dublin is Ireland's former Prime Minister, the Taoiseach Bertie Ahern, who played a leading role in the Irish peace process along with Martin McGuiness. Good to have you with us live on Al Jazeera, Mr Ahern. Many tributes are coming in from across the globe for Mr McGuiness, but when did you realise that this was a man that you could do business with and a man that could deliver?
Yes, he was. You know, he was an IRA person from the past. He was very involved in the Republican movement through all his young years. But from the early 90s on, I was dealing with him. We dealt with him for 20 years, right through all the discussions and negotiations. He was chief negotiator. And he was somebody who, of course, he had very clear objectives. He was forthright for his cause, and he was honest in the issues that we dealt with, and I found he was somebody you could compromise with, you could try to come to an understanding with. Peace was the priority for us, to get a just peace, to stop the violence and to try to set up a new political accommodation, which we succeeded in doing.
He, of course, had to negotiate some very tough deals with you in terms of how to bring on side some very hard-line Republicans who didn't want peace in Northern Ireland with the British establishment. How would you describe his negotiating skills, not just with yourselves, but also with the British government and with his own Republican supporters who he had to bring on side?
Well, I think he had those leadership qualities of, he had obviously a track record that gave him a lot of street credibility with the hardliners in the IRA. But he went out of his way to talk and debate with them. I always remember he been saying to me that the Good Friday Agreement was the most read document ever in Northern Ireland. And I think what he was meaning, that he had to go through that line by line with a lot of the people who had been involved in the armed struggle, people that were close to him. And I think he had the initiative to try to do that. He had the ability to articulate the reason we should go to peaceful means, and then he was firm in standing by it. So I think, you know, he had good qualities. And okay, looking back in the early years, there are those who today will condemn him totally. But I think he did move from that violent path and that fairly ruthless movement that the Provisional IRA was, to working towards peaceful means. Like
yourself, when you are the Taoiseach of the Republic of Ireland and he was representing the IRA, you have some tough negotiating bravado to bring to the table. Did he ever confide in you in any self-doubt about the peace agreement, the way forward, what the future might have in store? Because as strong-willed as all negotiators want to be in these sorts of circumstances, we sometimes do doubt ourselves.
Yeah, no, I think he was clear that the troubles, as they're known, had to come to an end, that it was time to move a new way, to try and get parity of esteem, to get equality, to move to a sense of fairness. I think he acknowledged that people on all sides had suffered, and people had lost, innocent people had been lost in the terrible years of the Troubles, and that the way forward now was to a resolution of the conflict, a just resolution of the conflict. And I don't think he regretted any of his past, but he certainly was committed and put in a huge effort, huge personal efforts to move us on and to convince people that this is the way we should go into a peaceful Northern Ireland for the future.
In those early years after the Northern Ireland Agreement, the Good Friday Agreement, he had to work very closely with the Reverend Ian Paisley. Were you surprised at the way the two connected? They were often called the Chuckle Brothers, weren't they?
They were, but I think the real thing was, I think people will remember that phrase, but I think they genuinely trusted each other. They said, yes, we had our past, we had our differences, we took totally different philosophies, religions, policies, but now we're here to make a new beginning. And it wasn't easy for them. I mean, they had both come. I was in the middle of them for many, many hours and weeks and months of meetings. But they decided that this was the way forward, and they said, yeah, we have transformed. I mean, Martin McGuinnes would say, you've changed your position. And Ian Paisley certainly believed that Martin McGuinnes had moved away from the violence. And I think that they then just didn't get on personally well. They started dealing with the agenda, dealing with the big issues that were outstanding, and there were many, and trying to find practical, friendly solutions of moving forward, and that certainly was great to see, but was surprising thinking where we all came from.
Indeed, the past few months has seen the North see splinter groups attack some of the security forces. We've seen the government itself in Northern Ireland fall apart, and we've seen a re-election again with Sinn Féin doing very well in the elections. Is this a moment for politicians across the Northern Ireland spectrum, and perhaps also in both London and Dublin, to re-evaluate where Northern Ireland is and to bring everybody back on point, to remind them of why they're there and what the consequences are of not being able to find consensus?
Yes, I agree with that. I think it's not a time for taking a rush up to the head. We have made huge progress over the last 20 years. But the peace process must continue. There's more work to be done, and there's a necessity to get the institutions, the Northern Ireland Executive and Assembly, back up and running. It's important that the politicians that are elected to that in the recent election get down to dealing with the real issues of the people, education and health and welfare, issues of environmental issues, and get on with that. We have Brexit, and the effect that could have on the island of Ireland, north and south. So we need to get stability, we need to make progress, and we need to make sure that we continue on the work that's gone on now for the last 30 years or so.
Bertie Ahern, the former Irish Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time and for talking to us here on Al Jazeera, sir.
Thank you very much.